Welcome to the Expat Edge with Marcus and Matt, where we answer your questions about becoming an expat to help you thrive abroad.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Expat Edge. Today we're with a friend of mine who's living in Kazakhstan, but he's had quite an interesting journey to get there. He's worked in a number of countries, a couple of jobs. We met, I think, way back in 2016 probably, or 17, whenever you moved to Moscow. And so I want to introduce Tim Dahlstrom, an American who's living in Kazakhstan. Tim, how's it going?
It's great to be here, Matt. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. So maybe we could start. If you just give me a few words of why you decided to go abroad. A lot of our viewers, they're interested in moving abroad, but have no idea where to start. What was kind of the starting point for you?
Sure. So for me, at least when I was in college, I spent a lot of time actually in Japan. And so that kind of, invigorated my love for really traveling and going abroad. And then after I had kind of finished university, I was working in finance in the US, and just I hated it. I was bored all the time. And so I ended up with an opportunity through a mutual friend of ours to move to Moscow. And I jumped on that opportunity pretty much as soon as I could.
That's right. I remember that. I actually didn't remember that you worked in finance. I did the same. I usually tell the story. I started working in corporate finance, did that for 2 years and said, there's no way I could do this for another 40. And I was out.
Yep, pretty much.
You moved to Moscow. What was your first job?
So I'd been traveling there a lot from 2015 to 2018, but my first job was I was basically a BDR, right? A business development representative for a company that did affiliate marketing. It was the largest, I think it still is the largest affiliate marketing firm kind of in the former Soviet countries in the CIS.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. And then I left shortly after you started there. How did that go? I know you ended up in in Moldova, and then now you're in Kazakhstan, but I think you've changed jobs since.
Yeah, so I worked there for a little over a year, and then I moved over they kind of had like a venture studio with like kind of startup projects that they were funding. I moved over to that company, and I was heading a business development team there. Worked there for a little over another year, and then from there I started working at a company called Zeroqode, which is a no-code, low-code kind of development agency where we help build web and mobile applications. And I started working for them about 2.5 years ago now at this point. Their founder, he connected with me over WhatsApp. I applied through Headhunter, which is a pretty common job board in the CIS. And their founder contacted with me, and they had mentioned that for the position, they wanted me to actually move to Moldova. So then my, at the time, fiance, we moved to Chisinau at the time, and lived there for about a year.
Okay. And how did Chisinau compare to living in Moscow?
It's very different. Chisinau, for those of you who don't know, is a very, I don't want to call it Soviet, right? There's definitely positives of living in Chisinau in that the wine is absolutely fantastic. It's dirt cheap, so if you can earn a foreign salary and live in Chisinau, you can live like a king. I had a friend there who I went to the gym with, and he was like basically a property developer. He had like 2 apartments that he just kind of rented out in New York, and just kind of used the passive income from that to like slowly purchase apartments in Chisinau. And I think by the time I met him, he had already owned 8 apartments in Chisinau and was renting those out and was just living like a king, honestly. He had a brand new G-Wagon. There was a story in Moldova about him because he brought the first ever 6-liter car to Moldova. They had to create a new tax bracket for cars for him.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, one of the things, I mean, we'll get to Kazakhstan here in a minute, but one of the things a lot of people don't think about is that there's definitely a world out there where Americans like you and I are working. Yes, we're making less than we would in the US, but the cost of living in these countries is so low that your standard of living is very high. This is something that I think a lot of Americans don't really think about. And I know, do you have any other expats at your company, or are you the only one from the US?
I'm the only one from the U.S. We hired another guy from Canada, but he was actually in Canada when we hired him. Didn't end up working out, but that's besides the point. I think that there are some difficulties, especially if you don't speak. At least in my case, if you don't speak Russian, there's some difficulties in understanding the culture, and that the working environment is definitely a lot different than it is in the U.S.
Yeah, well, we should do a video about working culture in the former Soviet Union. I hate to generalize, but I think it's quite similar across the region, at least in my experience. I work for an Eastern European law firm now. Although, I would say, when I lived in Russia, everyone used to say that it was the same and all over Eastern Europe. It's definitely not. The further you get west, still in Eastern Europe, it's much more like Germany than it is Russia. But anyway, so you were in Moldova, and then I imagine, based on what you said, that you guys decided, you and your fiance, to leave. I believe your fiance is from Kazakhstan, right? That's kind of the connection back to Kazakhstan, right?
Correct. Yeah. So we lived in Moldova for exactly a year. On the exact date that we moved there was the exact date that we left to move to Kazakhstan, 1 year apart. So we moved to Kazakhstan about a year and a half ago at this point. And really just a fantastic experience. I mean, Kazakhstan, I don't know if you've been, Matt. I imagine that, that's
I have not.
plans for you.
It is.
Okay. Well, it should be on your plans then. But yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic place. It's wonderfully beautiful. I mean, at least I'm in Almaty. In Almaty, what's fantastic is, you can go one way and you're kind of in the plains, in the steppes. You can go the other way and you're up in the mountains. I mean, I love the fact that I drive up to my father-in-law's house. He lives a little bit further up in the mountains than me, and sometimes I have to slow down my car because there's just wild horses in the road, and you get to drive past these just beautiful animals. So yeah, it's really awesome.
Right, and Almaty is like, it's a city of over 1 million people, right? This isn't like a small city. That's the big kind of attraction.
It's about 2 million, yeah. About
2
million people.
Okay.
2 million, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that sounds really interesting, Tim. We'll stop it there, and we'll chat about some of these topics more in depth in other videos. We'll see you guys later.
That sounds great, Matt. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. This was the Expat Edge with Matt and Marcus. We hope you enjoyed the video. Visit theexpatedge.com for even more content that will help you thrive abroad. You can submit your ideas for video topics and sign up for free at theexpatedge.com. See you there.